In this video, I'd like to show you how you can download the PLC program to a virtual PLC created by S7 PLCSIM Advanced via the network adapter. PLCSIM Advanced is a really powerful tool which allows you to create virtual S7 1200 and 1500 PLCs and use them for testing and simulating your PLC program. And if you are already familiar with that tool, you might know that there are basically two ways in establishing a connection to that virtual PLC. You can use the local, the softbus communication, or the network communication via TCP IP. And in this video, we are going to focus on that network communication. And I'm going to show you all settings you have to do to establish such a connection. So if you've already installed PLCSIM Advanced and you open the software interface, you see a switch at the top where you can select between the two ways of online access. And by default, that switch is set to left, which says PLCSIM, and that stands for the local communication, also mentioned as softbus. And in that configuration, your virtual PLC has no communication to any other network participant and is running in a fully isolated mode where it can only communicate to the TIA portal installed on that computer. But if you set the switch to right, to PLCSIM Virtual Ethernet Adapter, you can create virtual PLCs that are accessible over your network. And that means they have their own IP address and are visible in your network like a real PLC. And before we jump into the network adapter configuration, I'd like to show you one error message that could appear if you are doing this the first time. So if I now set the switch to right to PLCSIM Virtual Ethernet Adapter, this message here appears. And it says that the netgroup package filter driver NPF is not running on this system. And this usually appears if you're working with an older version of PLCSIM Advanced, like in my example with the version 3.0. If you are working with version 4.0 or newer, then the NPF driver should be installed with the standard PLCSIM Advanced installation. So if you are able to set the switch to PLCSIM Virtual Ethernet Adapter and you don't receive any kind of exception that says that the NPF is not installed, then the netgroup packet filter driver is already installed and you're good to go. And for those of you who received that error message, I have created a separate video where I show you how to fix that. I will add a link to that video in the description box below. So now that we got that, we can move on and configure our network adapter. And that's a mandatory step if you want to access the virtual PLC from your TIA portal, for example. So we move to the control panel. And from here, we go to the network and internet settings, network and sharing center after that, and finally to the adapter settings. And here you can see all network adapters of your computer or your virtual machine. In my case, there are 4 adapters, but only 2 of them are active. The Ethernet 1 is my real physical network adapter of my computer, and Ethernet, that's a virtual adapter, a virtual PLCSIM adapter, which is created or installed by PLCSIM Advanced. To be able to create a virtual PLC that is reachable out of your network over TCP IP, you have to set the right IP address for both adapters, for the real and for the virtual adapter. And as you might know, the right IP address is built through the IP address of the network participant you want to reach, in this case the virtual PLC, and the subnet mask. And here I got a short example for you to show you how you can set the right IP address for your network adapters. So my PLC here has the IP address 10.12.25.5 and the subnet mask 3 times 255 and 0 for the last place. And 255 is the highest number one of your subnet mask places can have. And at each position where you have the 255 in your subnet mask, you have to set the same number in your network adapter like the IP address of your PLC. So in this example, the 10.12.25 are fixed numbers for my network adapter if I want to reach the PLC. And by that, I can choose a free number from 1 to 254 for the last place of my IP address. The numbers 0 and 255 are reserved. So for example, I can take 10.12.25.3 for my first network adapter and 10.12.25.4 for the virtual PLCSIM network adapter. So let's do that in practice. First of all, I'm selecting the right physical network adapter of my PC. In this case, it's the Ethernet 1. That's my real physical network adapter. And now I'm ready to create a virtual PLC. So let's choose a name, for example, PLCSIM Test PLC. And now I'm setting an IP address for that PLC, 10.12.25.4, and a subnet mask, 3 times 255 and 0. And I click on Start. And after a few seconds, my PLC is created. And now I can move on and configure my network adapters so that I can reach that PLC here. So I'm going to the network adapter settings. First of all, Ethernet 1, that's my real physical network adapter. And I'm selecting the properties. Now I'm going down to Internet Protocol version 4, TCP IP4, and here I'm setting an IP address so that I'm able to reach the PLC. So in this example here, I'm choosing 10.12.25. Now I can choose a free number, and in my case, the number 5 is free. So I'm setting that, and I'm also setting the subnet mask to 3 times 255 and 0 at the end. That's basically all, and you can confirm it with OK. Now I'm going to the virtual PLCSIM Ethernet adapter. In my case, it's called Ethernet, and I'm doing more or less the same. So I'm scrolling down to Internet Protocol version 4. I'm going to the properties of that. And here I'm setting the IP address, which is also 10.12.25. And the last number, of course, has to be a different number than before. And for example, I'm choosing 6 here. The subnet mask stays the same, 3 times 255. And that's all you have to do here. And you can confirm it with OK. So that's the whole setup process for your network adapters. And now we can move on to our TIA portal and download our application to our virtual PLC. And I'm choosing a pre-created example project here. And this project here is using a single 1500 PLC. So in here we first go to the properties of that PLC. And you can basically choose any 1500 PLC. So nearly every 1500 PLC is supported by PLCSIM Advanced. And in the properties, you move to the interface X1 and you set the IP address you have chosen for your virtual PLC. And beware, you can only simulate virtual PLCs via your port X1. You can't use the port X2 here. So I'm setting the same IP address and the same subnet mask. And that should be all I need to do here for the configuration. So I can move on and download hardware and software to my PLC. And here it's important to choose the right network adapter. So the PLCSIM, which is pre-selected, is only for the local simulation. So we're not going to use this one. And here you, for example, see the network connection 2, which is a physical network adapter. You can also see the virtual Ethernet adapter created by PLCSIM Advanced and another physical adapter. So in my case, because I'm working in a virtual machine, I have multiple adapters installed, but only the gigabit connection 2 is my real physical adapter. That's the only one which is currently active. So I'm choosing this one here. And you have two options to find the PLC. First of all, you can just click on Start Search. And often, like in my case here, it won't find the virtual PLC. And here you can use a trick. You can type in the number of your PLC. If you double click into the address field, so 10.12.25.4, and you just click on Enter or click somewhere else. So it starts searching. And it looks especially for a PLC with that IP address. And this way it should be able, yes, there it is, should be able to find it. And that's a trick you can use. If start search doesn't find your virtual PLC, just type in the IP address and do it that way. So now that I found my virtual PLC, I'm able to download my hardware settings and the PLC program itself to my virtual PLC. If you have any trouble finding your virtual PLC, even after you have entered the IP address manually and configured your network adapters in the right way, you should try turning off the firewall of your computer. If you have any trouble finding your virtual PLC, even after you have entered the IP address manually and configured your network adapters in the right way, and this one looks okay, and now I'm able to load my PLC program, and I'm starting the module. And here you can already see that PLCSIM Advanced has recognized our PLC program. The virtual PLC is in the mode run, and that means we have successfully downloaded our PLC program over our network adapter to our virtual PLC. In our network, that virtual PLC is like a real network participant now, so it's reachable from other computers in your network. You can connect to that via, for example, OPC UA, and it overall behaves like a real network participant. So that's all for this video here. If you have any questions, leave a comment and I'll try to help you as good as I can. And if you want to learn more about PLCSIM Advanced in general, I have a Udemy course for you where I show you all features and functions of PLCSIM Advanced for testing PLC programs and how you can use the PLCSIM Advanced API, which is probably the most powerful feature of this software, to build your own testing and simulation tool that you can use for simulating real automation hardware. So if you are interested in that, check the link in the description box.